This is Rising Phoenix Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Rhodes. This podcast is for men struggling with an unwanted divorce. I interview experts on divorce, mental health, and I provide insights gained from my own divorce journey. You are not alone. Join me. Joining me today is Mr. Cole Grace. Cole, let's just jump right into this, and why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right. Yeah, my name's Cole Grace, and I'm a combat veteran. I was in Iraq in 2005. I did route clearance, which was removing roadside bombs from the road. I was also uh, developed a chronic illness while I was over there, stomach issues while working with radiation and different things to try to defeat the IEDs. And then, so I had came home in 2006 and was medically discharged from the military in 2008. I was married in 2008 as well, and then divorced in 2010,
Mm.
and went back to school on vocational rehabilitation with the GI Bill through the military, and then ended up working back for the federal government as a civilian in IT project management. And I worked there from like 2012 until 2020,
Mm.
and I continued to have the stomach problems, which they didn't know exactly were chronic in the beginning, which is why I went back to school and stuff, but they ended up persisting. And then I was medically retired from federal service in 2020.
Mm.
I was remarried in 2019.
Mm.
And in 2021, the VA put me on 100% permanent and total disability. And then in 2022, I moved to Costa Rica with my wife at the time.
Mm.
And I still live in Costa Rica, but I was recently divorced in 2025. And now I wrote a book about mental health called Internals Greater Than External, Calming the Chaos Within. And I'm speaking on podcasts and talking about mental health and trying to normalize the conversation around mental health.
Yeah, I mean that's wow, what a hell of a story. So I want to dive in a little bit to sort of I don't know if this is fair, but to compare what you went through in combat to now two divorces. I know it's not apples to apples, but it is
Right.
trauma, right? It's trauma
Yeah.
in general. Um, can you compare the two feelings and struggles that you went through? How much of it was similar and how much of it was completely different?
Right. And then this is a really good question because it is a dichotomy. The feelings seem different, right? Like some of the hypervigilance that I would get from the PTSD from being in Iraq and some of the anger and road rage type things
Mm-hmm.
feel differently than some of like maybe the insecurities of that I might have had in the relationship or feeling walking on eggshells and constantly getting in arguments. But a lot of it came from similar like childhood trauma and then like compounded upon was the war trauma compounded upon the childhood trauma, and that was at the root. And it's a similar thing with the divorce stuff, is a lot of the attachment style and the lack of boundaries and things that I had that led to the divorce were rooted in that childhood stuff. So the addressing trauma in general and a lot of the ways that I've addressed the both the trauma from combat and the trauma from the divorce both are very similar because they go back to working on the childhood stuff and working on the self-esteem and working on the self-love and in that arena, and that is what unlocks, in my opinion, both of those traumas.
Yeah, I mean, it makes complete sense to me. Obviously, hindsight being what it is, and learning all the things that I've learned, um, it's it definitely it all ties back to childhood, right? Because the things that you struggle with, if you don't heal them, correct them, whatever language you want to use, you sort of repeat them, right?
Yeah.
Um, did so that I mean, I was going to ask, like, in terms of healing the process, if they were different, but I'm hearing that they're not. But maybe talk a little bit about more of that. Like when you go and attempt to heal yourself, quote unquote,
Hmm.
and are you eventually you get to childhood, but were you compartmentalizing and saying, okay, I'm dealing with my combat, and let's address that. and then maybe we'll get to the divorce, or like how did that process all work for you?
Well, at first it worked where I wasn't willing to admit I had any trauma. And I think I cussed my first counselor out that tried to talk about childhood. I was like, I just got done disarming bombs in Iraq, bro. Like, this is not
Right.
the problem. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so it's
Yes.
very counterintuitive to think that this stuff is related back to childhood, especially when the ego is involved.
Hmm.
But in the healing modalities, what I found is that a lot of the things come from a bad mindset, from a core belief, a negative core belief, negative self-talk. And
Hmm.
then when I map these things back, the way that I go about it is using positive affirmations around like triggers and around areas. So they might be different. The trigger for the combat is different than the trigger from the divorce.
Sure.
But the way that I work through them is the same by using a positive affirmation, by using like a mission statement, by using gratitude practice, and those types of things help me to pull through regardless of the trauma. And it's a actually kind of relieving that I can work through the same template regardless of where I find it, because you don't know where you're going to find it. Sometimes there's a trigger and I don't know if that's going to come from combat. I don't know if
Mm.
that's going to map back to childhood. I don't know if that's going to map back to a divorce. So when I start mapping it back, I have to, and it might have two touch points, right? It might be like, well, this is from combat, which is my perfectionism,
Mm.
where I gotta, when the first people died, I equate, you
Hmm.
can't make a mistake equals people dying. And
Right.
then I can map it back further to when my stepdad used to tell me that I was like a lollygagger. I did the bare minimum. And like, so it reinforced this core belief I had when I was a kid. And it was like, dude, you need to like be mean to yourself like a drill sergeant. And
Right.
that's not good enough. Do it again. And so I developed this thing and it has two touch points. And so I have to map it back and kind of, go around both things. I'm not in a combat zone anymore. This isn't life or death. So I don't have to be at that intensity. And then I
Yeah.
can go back to this isn't my identity. The reason why when I was a child I wasn't engaged is because my parents divorced when I was young and had a rough younger childhood. It wasn't because I was like really lazy.
Right.
I don't have to embody that. I'm really capable. And since, so mapping those back to those two touch points and then reworking out of those and with truths. Because a lot of times there's just like maybe it was true at the time. Yeah, at the time, if I made a mistake, people could die, but that's not true anymore. And
Right.
it keeps running as if it were true in an environment where it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, I want to go back to something you said because I think this is really, really important. And I think this is why men struggle with healing and even looking at trauma and pain and of the emotional kind. You talked about sort of how it wasn't when your first meeting, it was, you were doing really important and masculine, tough things, right? You were diffusing bombs. Like, what the fuck? What is this
Yeah.
talking about feelings type shit?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's something that I think based on your childhood, it sounds like that, and I think we're all like this, but it's definitely hear it in your story where it was reinforced that you weren't tough enough, you needed to be tougher, right? And I
Hmm.
imagine something like the military, ex-Navy myself, it reinforced that in a way because to get through boot camp, I don't know Army versus Navy boot camp, but I mean, you can't just sit in a corner and cry, right?
Right.
You gotta toughen up a little bit. You got it. And
Hmm.
so I imagine that once you get to a point where it's time to sit and talk about feelings, there's this part of you going, fuck feelings.
Yeah.
I don't have those. Right.
Right. I learned how to suppress those and
Yeah.
like do my job without, having to work through, without having to think of what if and slow me down. And, so
Right.
the feelings, yeah. And then especially going back to like childhood feelings, like what?
Hmm.
Like I was just in combat, man. This is not,
Yeah.
but it all does stem back from that. And it is a lot of ego that comes from just being a man in general, then being military, being sports my whole life, play through the injury. You know, you don't tell the coach you're injured because then he has to put you out. So,
Yeah. What
it's
was
just unwritten rule.
what was the catalyst to you finally going, okay, maybe there's something here? Like what was it that allowed you to sort of be open to even talking about and then exploring things like childhood trauma?
I worked through a lot of the combat trauma
Mhm.
and I still was having problems. I started focusing external. Had a good job. I had a house. I had all these external things
Right.
that would say I'm good. And so, but I also had this chronic problem, and I would need to have pain medicine at times when I'd have an episode. And then the opioid crisis started, and I'd go to the emergency room like I normally would, and they'd be like, "Yeah, nope, you can have an aspirin," and then go home.
Right.
And so eventually, I started to like self-medicate, and I noticed I was working for the government, and I noticed that there was a problem. Like I'm physically dependent now. I don't just take them when I'm having an episode, and so before it became like a huge thing, I went to inpatient like 7 or 9 day rehab.
Mm.
And while I was there was a lot of people that were court ordered to be there, and a lot of like there was a lot of crazy stuff there. But then there was somebody who one of the counselor people gave me a book. It was called like Unlearn Your Depression and Anxiety or Pain and Depression by Dr. Howard Schubner, and it had a lot to do with the mind body connection and
Mm.
like how psychosomatic stuff and mapping back to core beliefs and your core foundational beliefs that you form, and how your brain's not really, it's in like an undeveloped state. So you're developing these beliefs about the world that you're going to act on for the rest of your life at a
Mm.
young age. And then like something like 90% of the stuff that we decisions and things that we do are subconscious, and only like 5% is conscious.
Yeah.
So in doing that, looking back at your subconscious, and then you go into the neuroscience of it and neuroplasticity, and you go down that rabbit hole, and you start to realize that a lot of this stuff is formed in our neural pathways in an early age or around trauma. And to unwire these or to form new pathways, there's going to be different strategies and tactics, but they're going to be similar
Yeah.
depending on, where you're
Yeah.
going with it. So that was something that unlocked it to me, that this isn't just touchy feely. If I
Right.
feel good, I'll be good. Like, no, this is actual neuroscience and brain science. And there's a lot of um things to it. I never gave it any credence. And once I started to, though, my life started to change.
Yeah. You speak to something that I definitely think is a way that can lead men into healing therapy, those types of things, and that is the logic, the facts, the neuroscience behind this shit. I think
Mhm.
it's definitely can be a conduit. I want to talk a little bit about triggers. You mentioned triggers, and I think this is important, but I think it's really, really hard. How did you? Maybe the combat it was a little easier, but how did you identify, or how do you identify your triggers?
That's a good one too. A lot of times it's something that I get upset about, and I have to
Mm.
there's always a stimulus, but my reaction is a little bit over the top. And it's easy to justify that reaction, but if you can analyze it and be real with yourself and be, why is this bothering me so much? This should not be bothering me so much. And instead of making excuses for why it's bothering you so much and why it should be, try to figure out where it comes from, and like, why is this upsetting me so much? This is somebody else's problem. It's not even my problem, but it could be reminding you of something, like something with my mom sometimes when she asks questions in a certain way and she knows the answer, and it's like a lawyer. When somebody does that to me,
Right.
I'm just like, ah, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm
Uh,
sorry. It's just, or you get when you feel yourself getting frustrated and annoyed at I was talking about this the other day. Sometimes you can shift things into anger because that's
mhm.
a more comfortable feeling. So that's something that I look for, is when I get angry, I look for, is there something that was before that? Was I sad before I got angry? Was I feeling abandoned before I got angry?
Mhm.
And I kind of like look under it, because anger is just, that's my go-to. And so it doesn't matter what happens. I'm like, whoop, let's put that into the anger category because I don't like being sad.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000. I mean, I think I don't know the percentage, but a whole fucking lot of men can relate to what you're saying because that's the
Yeah,
one. That's the one emotion we can express, right? We're
right.
told that one seems to be okay. Don't cry, don't be a bitch, but you can get
Mm-mm.
mad, right? That one's
Yeah.
acceptable. Um, as you started going through this process, like what were some of the things that you sort of dove into? I think if I remember on your bio, you mentioned EMDR. Was it just was that part of your healing process? Was just psychotherapy? Like, what were some of the things that you sort of used to heal?
I tried a lot of different things. And the ones that I liked, I did like EMDR a lot. That helped. And at first it seems weird because it's like this, you're kind of making up new um, you're reprocessing things around, so you're kind of imagining certain things.
Right.
And I was like, I didn't get it at first. Like, this is yeah, but that didn't happen. But your
Right.
brain doesn't know it didn't happen. You can like reprogram your brain, your
Yeah.
subconscious into believing these things, and it can actually relieve some of those traumas. And so that was a big one for me was EMDR. But then there was reading a lot of self-help books and going through like Seven Habits of Highly Successful People,
Mm.
Unfuck Yourself.
Yeah.
There's a few of them out there that I've read that, I took bits and pieces from that I could use. And I found a lot of underlying themes. And then that's when I wrote the book that I wrote, taking some of those and what I've learned. And think what else. I've also um, dealt with like ketamine and magic mushrooms, and that
Nice.
has helped to like relieve the pressure points around trigger points so you don't
Mm.
feel as triggered and you can kind of talk more. And I don't like, just don't go just take mushrooms or something and be like, "Woo,
Right.
what's gonna happen?" Like I'm talking about like with a counselor or like in
Sure.
a guided session, and
Yeah.
it helps to be able to especially around some certain areas that are almost maybe in that you feel like you can't talk about without breaking down completely.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, those were some of the modes, and then just doing the mission statement, the gratitude, and the positive affirmations.
Well, I'll dive into that a little bit more in a sec. I want to ask about, you know, I know for me, what I've done a lot of healing, I've done a lot of work, and then I'm in a much better place. It's been 6 years since my ex left, but there are moments. They're fewer and further between, but there are moments where I feel like I've taken steps backwards, or I'm right back where I was, or I'm in that headspace where I feel like shit, for lack of a better description. Um, I'm sure you probably experience that. I think anyone does because for a lot of reasons, but I think brain definitely, neural pathways are definitely. I think it is. You can change some things, but I think there are some things that are just so deeply ingrained that it makes it tough to
Mhm.
never experience those types of things again. But what do you do in those moments when you feel like you're right back to the beginning and you've made no progress in your healing?
Yeah, there's weathering storms, and they're always going to come. You're never going to come to a place where you don't go through it. You're just going to be better at dealing with it when you do go through it. And so part of the way is to make this part of my lifestyle, not to just try to do gratitude, deep breathing, and do these things when I'm starting to feel crappy, because then it doesn't work. It's got to be worked into something that you do. And then when you are feeling bad, it can help bring you out of it quicker.
Yeah,
But it's not something like a pill, like you just take it and you're like, all right, in 30 minutes, I'm going to feel better. Like you have
right.
to practice these things. So the other part I was going to talk about was that with my chronic illness, I'll have these episodes and my stomach will go off and it'll last for sometimes up to a week where it's every day, every time I eat something. And that I don't care if I'm the Dalai Lama and I've been practicing
Right.
the Zen it pisses me off. I get mad at God. I get
Yeah.
upset.
Yeah.
My mental health goes down the hill. I start to
Sure.
get negative. Like what in the questions, even sometimes suicidal ideations, like what are you even doing this for anymore? And so that's where like the mission statement and those things come into play is to be able to combat those feelings because they're not going to go away. They're going to come, and it's going to, the bigger the level, the bigger the devil, right? So like if you're trying to move and progress forward, you're going to realize these things and you're still going to run into them, and they're going to be maybe even in a different form, or they're going to be, the same thing. And you're going to be like, oh, I thought I climbed this mountain, and even be talking on these podcasts. Like, and let me have a weekend where I have a bed and I'm like, my inner critic starts to be like, who are you to be talking about mental health when you can't even manage your own mental health, you know?
Right.
So give yourself grace and get back onto the path. That's the way to go. Don't let it suck you down the drain. That's how I go.
I love the mission statement thing. Let's touch about that. Is that something you cover in the book?
Yeah. Yep.
I'd love to dive into that a little bit more. I mean, I know what a mission statement is in terms of like a corporation, a company, even the podcast and my support group, but like a personal one. Just let's just talk about that that tool that you use. How do you use it? What do you do? And those kinds of things.
Yeah, definitely. I go more than it's more in depth than like what you'd see for a company mission statement, like make the world great again or whatever.
Right.
So what I do is I list out the roles that I have. Right now, I'm a Christian male, I'm an author and a speaker. I'm a family member, whether that's uncle, aunt, uncle, brother, whatever.
Right.
And then I'm a single male living in Costa Rica. So, and then in those roles, how do I want to show up? What do I want to, what are some things? It's almost like manifestations, affirmations. It doesn't have to be true right at this moment, but it's something that has the possibility of being true. So, like I'm confident and why I speak with vulnerability so that people know that it's real, even though it's an uncomfortable. Certain things that I put in there. What my mission is to normalize the conversation around mental health, especially with men and veterans, um, to share the tactics that I use to better my quality of life and help others do the same. So there's things in there. And then when those negative self-talk starts to happen, and also with my gratitude journal, I can pull those things out and I can get back on track a lot faster because I can negate those. No, my purpose, I'm doing it because of this. I'm still doing it because of this. It doesn't matter that I'm struggling right now. I still touch people's lives. Look, just last week, somebody messaged me about how I helped them, and I didn't even know that they listened or watched my thing.
Right.
It was somebody that I was in military with. So things happen, and I don't. You won't remember them in that moment. Your brain, your reticular activating system is just going to go and look at everything negative because you're in this negative headspace. So I try to find those positive things, remind myself, look, it's not all negative. It's good. And let's keep going.
So let's talk about the gratitude journal a little bit more. How do you maintain that? When do you use it? All the kind of all the stuff around that. Like how do
Yeah.
you use that?
I use that by first maintaining it. So I write down 3 to 5 things that I'm grateful for. I allow for repeats. I try not to do the same one every time. And they can be small, they can be something to like the really good cup of coffee this morning, or happy that I had a quiet breakfast or a good walk. Um, the view of the whatever. So I write down 3 to 5 things every day. And then when I start to go through that, the storm, like so to speak, and I start to have the negative self-talk and the negative mindset creep in, like, oh, your life sucks, everything, this is all, look, what are you even doing this for? You're in pain every day. And it's like, no, go read back through, and it's every day, 3 to 5 things, and I can go back and look at a couple weeks worth of gratitude and be have changed my mindset. I'm priming my brain to look for those things again instead of continuing to look for the negative things.
Is that something you do every morning, every evening, every afternoon? When
I try to do the gratitude in the evening before I go to bed, and the positive affirmations I do in the morning.
Gotcha.
Positive affirmations I create around areas that I find like with the road rage. You're safe. You're not in Iraq anymore. Or I am lovable. I am confident. And areas where maybe I felt low self-esteem or something, calling myself an idiot, you're smart, you're successful, whatever. So I have those. And then I do like repentance and forgiveness too in the mornings, where I just, even to myself, to other people, forgive them for certain things, even if they didn't mean it, even if they don't know that I'm forgiving them, whatever. You know what I mean? I
Right.
try not to hold on to any grudge or any type of animosity. And then also that helps to release guilt and shame.
Um, sorry, just thinking about everything you're saying and just trying to process it all. I mean, it's what you're describing is doing the work, you know.
Yeah,
And it's man, it's hard though, right? It's hard to be consistent with any damn thing, but
it
it's really
is.
hard to be consistent with these types of things. One, it's a learned behavior. You have to learn it. You have to create that neural pathway. It requires some discipline, consistency, right? Those types of things. These are really difficult things. Is the moments when you need those things, especially maybe the gratitude journal, does that help reinforce the reason you do it?
Yes. The suicidal ideations piece, and what happens for me is questions come in,
Mm,
and having an answer to those questions has probably saved my life. And so it's very important for me. And even when I don't, I'm still not perfect. I've been doing this for probably almost a year and a half straight now, but there's times where I have blanks in my gratitude journal where I was
Mm,
gone or doing something, you know what I mean?
sure.
Give yourself, like we were just talking about, when you do fall off, it's not like it's easy for me to justify like I had a bad week and then I can be like, I'm never talking on a podcast again because I
Right.
sucked
Yeah.
yesterday. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, just because you sucked yesterday, do good today, whatever. Like it's for you, it's not for anybody else. So, you fall off, it's fine. Don't beat yourself up and say, well, I'm not, this isn't for me. It's too hard to do. Like, just do it tonight then,
Yeah.
and it's something that, yes, the benefit of it when I am in the throes of it is I'll do anything for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it speaks to the importance of it, right?
Mhm.
To get your mind. And I think this is the work, right? As I say all the time, you can't let this thing run amok, right? You can't let it just
No,
think whatever it wants because it's not always going to think good things for you.
no. And yeah, and training your brain because like if you have a negative mindset, which I do and I have, you got to catch that and reframe it all the time. The way that you think is your brain loves to be right. And so if you have a belief that I have bad luck, guess what? Your brain's going to show you every example of bad luck that it can find to reinforce that. Hey, see, we have bad luck. We're right. People don't like me. Well, you're going to go and interact with people as if they already don't like you. Then they're not going to like you. And you're going to be like, see, people don't like me.
Yeah.
And so these beliefs, you have to really be careful of these negative beliefs and negative thoughts because they do control your reality.
Yeah, I know 100%. I mean, it's really all about it's cheesy and like I don't know, kind of lame as it sounds. It really is about your mindset, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not sexy. It's not like complex. It's not difficult. I mean, it is to practice it, but like to describe it, what do you need to do to have a better life? Have a better mindset. Like that's, but it
It's so
doesn't.
stupid.
It's
I know.
yeah, yeah. I think
I
like
was on that side. I was
yeah,
definitely on that
a
side.
1000%. Like I think we expect this grand, like, oh, you need to like, go through all these things, and you need to be, a certain way, money and fitness, and like, but
Yes.
no, you don't need all that. What you need is a good mindset.
Right. I'd
But
much rather do the external things like go to the gym and do these external
right,
things than do the internal thing. And that's what the
yeah,
book is called. Internals greater than external is because all those external things can be gone in a second and then you're left with your internal. And if that's shit, then you're in trouble.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's why we're here. I
Right.
mean, it's when I think you could, well, obviously you can probably relate when you go through a divorce, your identity gets shattered, and you're just like, who, what and you don't have external anymore. Like if you're a father, you lose access to your kids at least half the time, even in a fair custody situation. You
Right.
lose money more than likely,
Hmm.
potentially your house. I mean, there's so many things that are detrimental that are external that are, or if not taken from you, modified in a certain way. Then you're left with the internal, and you're going, "What the fuck do I do
Right.
now?" Um,
Who am
did
I?
Yeah, well, that's a big one, and that's a whole other episode. Do you have and have you found a good community? Was that part of your healing process? Was it finding other like-minded men or other folks, maybe women as well, but people that you could lean on in tough times?
It's been hard because I've been in the middle of Costa Rica and there's a lot of retirement people around me
Mm,
and or pure Spanish speakers who have kind of a different upbringing. We don't have a lot
mm,
in common as far as how we were brought up, but it's okay. Online, I found different content and I found a lot of crossover between general mental health, which I had been working on even when I had started to get married and whatever, and and men's like being single and like attraction and having boundaries, and it
right.
all kind of stemmed from self-esteem. And the reason
Mm,
why that I had my ex-wife and she treated me the way she treated me is because of my lack of boundaries and my lack of internal fortitude and self-esteem and things like that. And so in working on that internal, I'm also, working on some of the things that led to the divorce, that led to me being in that relationship in the first place, that led to me attracting that type of person.
mm,
And so working on that stuff has been very important. And I'm no relationship expert, but I have found myself being able to be myself around everybody now and not changing if it's like some hot girl that I'm like and being
Right.
like a completely different person.
Right.
And I'm able to say no. And like, if some other person that I just met asked me to do the same thing, I'd probably say no. So no. And
Yeah.
like allowing myself to have boundaries and say no and not operate out of a scarcity mentality and more of an abundance mentality. And that's all, like we said, mindset. And then going back to your mindset.
Yeah. We talk about self-worth a lot, or self-esteem, self-worth. I think that is absolutely the core of most issues for everyone. I mean, I just think that's so critical. But it's, again, it's like all of this stuff is really easier said than done. But if you could pinpoint, I mean, you covered a lot of things, but maybe there's, 1 to 3 things that have been really beneficial in raising your self-worth and your self-esteem.
Yes, I would say that the positive affirmations that I do
Hmm.
help with that when I have find myself with negative self-talk or in a situation where I had like a low self-esteem moment and I felt less than
Hmm.
and flipping that into a truth like I am and actually like not just the affirmation so like and examples of it. So
Yeah.
like I am successful. I'm not lazy,
Yeah.
and then examples of things.
Yeah.
I am a good person, or maybe it's something my ex-wife said, she'd said some mean things and internalized some of those things. I'm not that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so taking that and flipping it to the reverse and verbalizing that, and I write it down now. I have like a list of like 10 or so, and I'll change them out every now and then, but I repeat them and I do them, whenever whenever I think about it. And it's only 10 of them. So I'm like, I am confident. I am lovable. I am worthy. I love God. God loves me. Go through my list. Boom, 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 boom. And I think that one's an easier one that you can do.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about the book and the process, because if I remember correctly, for your bio, you said that you wrote it. I think 5 years ago, maybe, or there was a 5 year gap between writing it and releasing it. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that sort of encapsulates some of what you're talking about, some of that self worth, because you wrote this book and then,
Yeah. It was self-talk, man. It was so I felt a calling to write the book and I just felt like I needed to share this. I started writing in like 2018, actually. And I got married in 2019. And then the pandemic happened in 2020. And then I moved to Costa Rica in 2022. And the relationship was kind of like going downhill. I wasn't as confident as I was. And I wasn't doing a lot of the things that I had even written about. And so I kind of felt this imposter syndrome. Like I
mm,
can't put this book out. I'm not even living by the book.
right,
And then towards the end, getting worse closer to the divorce, definitely thinking like this is not my life is not calm. So the chaos is still going.
right,
And so after she left though, I started reading back through the book and I was like, dang, a lot of stuff is still relevant, still applicable. And I started using that stuff. And I was probably 80% done with the book. I finished it in like 3 months and published it and finished it. I could have done that anytime during those years, but I never did because I felt like a fraud. I felt you're not a psychologist, you're not
right.
a doctor. What are you doing talking about neuroscience? And what are you doing talking about like mental health?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it was a lot of getting over that was just, I'm being vulnerable and I do know what I'm talking about. I've lived it. I have experience for the last 20 years with this.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think when I saw your bio and stuff, and I've had psychologists and doctors and all that, and that's good and valuable for sure. Like they're really smart, they know how the brain works. But give me a man or a woman that's lived through some trauma and is still here to talk about it and what they did to survive it. I don't know that it's more valuable. It's at least as equal for sure as someone who knows how the brain works and can tell you all these things. But give me a
Right.
person that's lived through it. Man, I'll take that any day of the week. Do you think that going through all the things you've gone through, I mean, are you at the point now where you can say like this book is worthy because I've gone through so much shit and here I am?
Yes, 100%. I'm at a point where I feel really good about talking about this stuff. And a lot of the negative things that I thought were going to happen were projections. They never even happened. It was just
Yeah.
my own insecurity, like, oh, people are going to think this and this. And nobody thought that. And
Right.
it was just me thinking that and
Yeah.
being insecure about it. And so I've worked a lot on my mindset and authenticity and validating myself, self-validation rather than seeking validation. And
Right.
so, and releasing from outcome and doing things because I want to do them and not because I want a certain outcome.
Yeah.
And so that has really helped me through that. Yeah.
Yeah. Cole, thanks so much for doing this. Really appreciate it. What's the best way they can find first your book and then you, if they want to contact you or any other content you're putting out there?
Yeah. So on Amazon, if you just search Cole Grace, the book Internals Greater Than External, Calming the Chaos Within will come up. On YouTube, it's at cgrace21. And I'm on Instagram too. That's at cgrace2180 underscore.
Awesome. Well, thanks for doing this again. I do really appreciate it. The last question that I ask everyone is, what words of wisdom would you impart to a man just beginning his divorce journey?
All right. Work on, like I was saying, self-validation. Don't go to the gym because you think you need to go to the gym to get a girl or something. Go to the gym because you want to be healthy. Do things for yourself, have strong boundaries, and figure out, like when I write, even aside from a mission statement, I've written out what I'm looking for in a woman.
Mm,
So that I know and so that I'm the one doing the selection. I'm not trying to go into the interaction and be like, pick me, pick me. This is all the good stuff about me. Please
right.
validate me.
Right.
I'm going into the interaction and I'm looking for certain things and I'm more like trying to make a selection. Is this person good for me or not? Rather than, well, she's beautiful and I hope she likes me.
Right.
So work on your internal fortitude and validating yourself so that you're not needing that from other people and it'll change your energy.
Awesome. Couldn't agree more. Cole, thanks again so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, brother. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for watching and or listening. If you are feeling alone on this journey, please join our Discord server. Becoming a Phoenix is not a solitary act. It is one achieved through community. Our Discord server is just that, a community of men fighting to survive, thrive, and rise from their divorce. Go to risingphoenixpodcast.com/Discord for information on how to join and what is contained in our Discord server. Please join us.